Righteous soldiers, children, do not cry, not afraid of your army or your FBI. They keep holding their heads up high, just proud as they can be. They know they must be strong, for the time is coming and it won't be long. They'll be called upon to carry on in the place of you and me.
Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Jehudith. I am a member of the Parable of the Sower Community Cooperative, and I want to thank everyone for coming to our program of Growing Up Targeted as part of the COINTELPRO, Exposed COINTELPRO series. And we'd like you to meet the daughters and the children of some of our greatest freedom fighters and leaders in this community, who continue to take their parents' work into their everyday lives through education, entrepreneurship, leadership, and they just continue to show the works of their parents who were targeted by COINTELPRO and the government unjustly. And those parents are Miss Sunny Ali, Fulani Sunny Ali, Bilal Sunny Ali, and Ahmed Obafemi. Forgive me if I say the name wrong, but he is also known as Shaka Zulu. And they have done many works such as speaking against the powers that be and speaking up for the people. So with no further ado, we're going to begin the program.
Peace, everyone. Now we are going to go ahead and say a prayer before we get started. I pray everyone is doing all right. You can stand, you can bow your heads, you can rise, do whatever that is comfortable, and I will just lead us in prayer to open us up. All right? O Most High, we come before you in humbleness and in gratitude, asking that you hear our prayer and mercy, and you find mercy in our prayer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanara El Elyon. Most High, we come before you in humbleness and in gratitude, thanking you for all things and everything. We ask that you continue to watch over us, guide us, shield us, heal us, and protect us. We thank you for our lives and the lives of our loved ones, the lives of Am Yisrael, the people of the world, and all those that are here with us in this webinar. We ask that you open up our mouths and our hearts to teach and give wisdom, and also to receive wisdom. We ask that you heal the hearts of those that need healing, protect those that need protection, guide those that need guidance, and be with all of us as we journey through our own journeys on this spiritual realm. We thank you again, Most High, for all things and everything. May you continue to be with us, our homes, our spirits, our minds, our bodies, our souls, the ones that we love, those that are in the hospital beds, those that are on the streets, those that are without some loved ones. We ask that you be with all of us. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Amen.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the 2998 COINTELPRO Coalition, we thank you for your attention, your participation this afternoon. We invite all, we are the 2998 COINTELPRO, Exposed COINTELPRO, COINTELPRO Coalition, designed to do education and mobilize the community around not only the COINTELPRO bill to expose all of the papers, all of the documents of harassment, surveillance against not only Black liberation, but all in the United States who have stood for justice and human rights. But we also do education around what has happened before COINTELPRO and what continues today against all those who stand for social justice. HR 2998 is a bill to expose all of the documents of COINTELPRO. We ask all organizations to come join us, and we can be reached through the phone number of 252-907-4443. And at the end of the program, we will give you our Facebook and other phone numbers to join.
Thank you for joining us today. I will go ahead and begin the introduction of our panelists who have joined us for this webinar today. I am Ezenwanyi Suni Ali Davis, the daughter of one of the panelists and the niece of the others. So we're gonna start with Aisha Obafemi, my auntie, and we also have with us Madaya Efuata Yisrael, my mama, and my other aunt, Dr. Asantewa Suni Ali. We will give them the opportunity now to introduce themselves for you all and to say a bit about themselves and the purpose of being here today. To you.
I am Princess Madaya Efuata Suni Ali. I am the daughter of Ia Fulani and Baba Bilal Suni Ali and Baba Ahmed Obafemi. I am also, I am married to Prince Kez, and I am the mother of 5 children. 2 of my beautiful daughters are 2 of the moderators today, Tahura and Ezenwanyi. I profess myself and know myself as a Hebrew Israelite. I am presently building a community out here in Sparta, Georgia, with my husband and different family members and community members. We are in the process of building homes, building a school, a medical institution, a spa, a tactical field, and a campground, and many other activities and processes on our land. But we'll get more into that later. And I think that's pretty much it for right now. We can go over to my sister, Dr. Asantewa.
Thank you, thank you. Greetings, everyone. Good afternoon. Very great to be here. Thank you all again for opening up this space to have this important dialogue. As was said, I am Dr. Asantewa Suni Ali, and I am also the daughter of Bilal and Fulani Suni Ali, as well as Ahmed Obafemi. And so I am proud to say that always and forever will be. It is very important to me to carry on that tradition, and I do so through a variety of means. I'm an educator. I am an associate professor in the Department of Africana Studies at Kent State University. I teach classes there on Black experience from the beginnings of time to present. I also teach courses on Black images, so looking at the history of racist imagery, in particular of Black people in the United States, and also throughout the African diaspora. And I also teach a Black childhood course. And so much of what we'll discuss today actually lies at a few of the intersections of my research agenda and research interests. And that is Black childhood, liberation, and revolution, and performances of revolution and liberation, both in the everyday sense and also in a theatrical sense. And so another way that my research manifests is through a documentary series entitled Seeds of Revolution. So you may notice that my sisters and I all have on Seeds of Revolution hoodies and shirts today, representing not only the documentary series, but what also extends to be a part of our identity as children of the movement. And so again, very excited to be here, grateful and honored to have this conversation today.
My name is Aisha Tazashima Obafemi. I'm the oldest daughter of freedom fighters and revolutionaries, Chaka Zulu Obafemi and Bilal Suni Ali, who were all political prisoners at one time. I am many things. I am a mother, a sister, an activist, an entrepreneur, an author of this book, A Light on the Hill, in honor of our cousin, Tupac Shakur. I am a mentor, a strategist. I am a TEDx talker. I am an executive producer. I am a brand builder. I'm a revolutionary, and I am so much more. I am thankful that I share the blood of my sisters, Medaya and Asantewa, and my beautiful niece here, Tahuanyi. And it is an honor to share some of our stories with you. We have many stories. I'm 55, so that I've seen and experienced in my lifetime are vast. And, at another time, you'll be able to read all about it. So looking forward to and educating those who do not know some of the things that we've experienced. And not only am I going to speak on behalf of our family, my immediate family, I'm going to speak on behalf of my cousins who were freedom fighters and, speaking for what we all went through, which, wasn't always the same. We all have different paths to carry. And especially today, I think about my cousins, Setua, Talib, with the release of our uncle, Matulu Shakur, the other day. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Auntie Dr. Asantewa, Auntie Aisha, and Mama Medaya Aswata Yisrael. We are now going to move it to Yehudit, and we will begin to ask our questions today to our panelists.
Yes, thank you, thank you. So I'm going to start by asking each of you one question. The first one is, I'd like you to share your story. What brought you to this moment right now? And just elaborate, please. Thank you. Can we start with Dr. Asantewa?
Sure. Or should I defer to my elder? I know Aisha had unmuted herself.
Go ahead.
What brings me here today? How did I get to where we are right now, to this moment? So my sisters will share, as Aisha said, there's so many stories and there's so many perspectives of the various stories that we have. So as Aisha said, she's 55, her and I are 16 years apart. And so while we, the three of us are sisters and we have plenty of other siblings, we all have the same experience regarding being children of political prisoners, being children of revolutionaries and activists and movement builders. However, we have vastly different perspectives and experiences within that larger experience. So for me, my mother, Fulani Suni Ali, was targeted. She was an activist. She was we should have shared her bio we should have shared both of our, all three of our parents' bios. But I think we can kind of piece it together as we talk. But just a little bit about Fulani, because I don't think we can talk about who we are and how we come to this place without talking about her, because that is how we come to this place, partly. Along with Baba Bilal Suni Ali. So Fulani Suni Ali and my sisters can join or post in the chat, or anybody on this call, feel free, let's lift her up and share all of her accolades, because, I'm not going to do it all. I know I won't, because it's so many things about her. But in short, she was a movement builder, right? She was an activist, an organizer, who began organizing at a very young age. As a teenager. She also was the daughter of a revolutionary, a movement builder, Elijah Adegbalola. who is my grandfather, our grandfather, who served as vice president of the provisional government of the Republic of New Africa. And he was the person who trained the New African Security Force. And so my mother came up, with a father, like this, who was a part of the movement. And so my mother passed on some of those practices, those revolutionary practices and principles. She carried that on, right? And embedded that in her parenting practices along with our fathers. And so while my mother was active in various communities, both nationally and internationally, nationally and internationally, she became a target of the FBI's counterintelligence program. I can't say at what point she became a target, right? It could have been, 10, 15 years prior to her and my father and others, including Dr. Mutulu Shakur, were framed and targeted by the counterintelligence program. And so while my mother was pregnant with me, she was imprisoned for allegedly being a part of an armed robbery of a Brinks truck in Nyack, New York. Her and my father were allegedly, a part of that and targeted as a result. And so my mother and father decided to go into political exile. And they did so both in the United States and also outside of the United States. And so my mother was about 3 months pregnant with me. Much of my experience, as you'll hear today, was told to me because I was either in the womb or very young during the height of my parents being in political exile and also being politically imprisoned. And so when my mother was about 3 months pregnant, that's when they went to Belize, Central America. This was 1982. And so they remained in political exile until October, I believe, of that year. And again, my siblings can help me out with some of the dates. I know my dad is also on the line and he's never afraid to offer correction and clarification on some of the things that may become blurry to us. And so just in short, my parents were captured in Belize in late 1982. They were shipped back to the United States. My mother was actually held at the Manhattan Correctional Facility, which was a jail for women. And while there, she had doctors and lawyers petitioning for her release because at that point, she was 8 months pregnant with me. She was able to get released very temporarily, but was, continuously put back in. She was finally released to actually give birth to me. And at that time, she was able to petition to stay out for about four months. So the first 4 months of my life, we were together. And at the end of that 4 months, she was, incarcerated again. And so the story kind of goes on from there. Again, this is my perspective. I know my sisters will share a different perspective. But that is how I was literally birthed into the circumstance of being, a targeted, not only child or growing up targeted, but being birthed within a circumstance of being targeted. I have a play that if any of you watch the video that the coalition put together, there's an excerpt in that video from the play that I wrote a few years ago entitled A Political Prisoner in My Mother's Womb. So I talk specifically about the circumstances of my birth, a lot more detail than I just shared. And I talk about, how that then impacted my childhood and my consciousness and the way that I move in the world and move in various spaces. So I'll stop there because I feel like I've talked quite a bit, and I'll allow my sisters to answer that question.
No, that was perfect. And that is insane that instead of just allowing your mother to be on bond, that they kept trying to put her back in jail. That's unfortunate. But I would like to hear from Mama Aisha, if you'd like to.
Oh, Mama Aisha. Okay. So there are, wow, so many stories that I could share. I will go to 1981. I was 13 years old when my mother was arrested along with my younger siblings. And wow, give me a second, guys. So during that time, from 81, I want to say, to 84, I didn't live with my parents or my siblings. We lived in different places because of everything that was going on. Mommy was falsely accused of participating in the Brinks incident. And when she was released, the day she was released, she was met with a subpoena and asked for handwriting samples, hair samples, etc. She, refused and was detained, thus becoming a political prisoner at that time. So during this time, we were living with family members and such. For my 9th grade year, that year of 81 to 82, I was in New Orleans along with my younger brother, Chaka Zulu, and we lived with our uncle, Lumumba Shakur. May he rest in peace. And during that time, FBI agents would come to my high school, and they did this for many years. And even up until the early 90s, they would come and they would not always approach me. Sometimes they would, sometimes they wouldn't. They would stand, but they would stand in a way that was threatening. It was bullying. They would stand. Sometimes it would be 2 of them. Sometimes it might be 5, and they would stand. They would let their presence be known that we're here. Sometimes they would come into my high school and try to ask my principal and vice principal if they could speak to me, and they would tell them no. And then they would proceed to come and get me and allow me to leave the school. They were very protective. There were times when they did approach, when they knocked on doors, knocked on our door, rung our doorbell, trying to get us to talk. We wouldn't answer the door, and they would say, things very menacing, very threatening. But, we weren't afraid because, we were taught that these were the tactics that they would try. They would try to appeal to our sense of our family. Don't you want your mother to come home? Don't you want to see your parents? Don't you want your family together? These type of things. And then even after, I was grown and was living in New York, where we're from, they would show up on my doorstep in Harlem. And I remember one time I went to listen to Brother Khalid Muhammad speak. He was, one of our uncles. And I told him that they were outside of the house that morning when I left. And so him and about 20 FOI escorted me home that day. And the agents were still there. And, they went up to them and told them, y'all not going to mess with her. Like, we're not allowing that. So this was just one of the things that they did, one of the ways that they targeted us. They would target us by listening to conversations. I heard, when we were in court, you'd hear different things that happened, and I can remember being maybe 12, 11, when certain things happen, and to hear it again, you're like, wow, this is what's happening. So there were things that they did, and all illegally, according to what they say. But that's just how they operated. So I know one of the things people ask is, if you could, what would you say to, these agencies. And I don't really have anything that I would like to say to those agencies, because I don't feel like they care, anything about us, what we've been through, what we go through, because they don't like what we stand for. And what we stand for is justice for our people and fighting for the liberation of our people by any means necessary. They don't like that. That's not what they want to hear. So they want to shut us up. They want to shut us down. They want to take our parents away from us. They want to make us feel that we are powerless, make us feel like there's no way that we can win. So it's our job and it's our responsibility to ensure that that doesn't happen. So by any means necessary, whatever we have to do, we have a right, we have an obligation to stand up and fight and to be those soldiers, to live the words freedom or death, and to make sure that people know that we are not afraid. This is a time, and it's really interesting to me, and I've said it to a lot of people, I am glad to see that people want to stand up, for their rights and fight for what is right, but I also want them to be more educated, and not to be surprised when certain things happen, because it's always happened. I think now that we have social media, there's, an opportunity for people to see more, to be, exposed to more of what happens to people on a broader scale and to see it in real time, so that, makes people feel a certain way. And, it lights a fire, I think, in people. And it's also, it can make you be emotionally charged. So I think we just need to be careful in how we interpret what is put out there and what we're exposing our children to, and that we have a responsibility to teach them. We can't just be upset. We can't just be angry. We have to explain what's going on. We have to explain what it means that these agencies don't have love for us, what it means that they don't have, remorse for killing, 12-year-old boys and women who are speaking out, asking questions, people who are sleeping in their own beds. Like, they have no remorse for those, for those things. They think that they have a right to do that. So we still have a long way to go as far as educating the masses and teaching them the correct way to deal with these things, that doesn't make it seem like we are just reacting, as opposed to coming up with strategies to protect ourselves and our communities. And we need to be more about community. It's not about self. I don't think that we are about community. And as the New African Creed says, I believe in the family and the community, and in the community as a family. And I will work to make this concept live. We must live by that. It's very important that we go back to those teachings, go back to how we were raised, that people thought was so, strange. But now, it's time for us to take it back there. So y'all want to learn about what it's like to grow up targeted, what it's like to grow up with these African names, why we wore dashikis and, wrapped our heads, why I had my nose pierced since I was 3 years old. You want to learn about what that means? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it in real time. Let's have real conversations about it. Let's not be afraid.
Yes, ma'am. That was powerful. That was very powerful. And I like something that you said, that this has always been happening. And it does seem like social media is doing some of the right things, like in inspiring that fire and that passion to want to fight back. But we need you guys to lead us and to guide us and teach us like how to react properly to these wrongdoings. So thank you again. And I'd like Mama Princess to begin. You could share some of your story as well.
All right, shalom, everyone. Before I begin, of course, giving all praises and glory and honor to the Creator, our Elohim, for allowing us to be here today at this moment and this time to be able to share our stories, and to just share some of our energy with everyone. So my sister said a whole lot, but not a whole lot at the same time. And so I just wanted to kind of go a little further on some of the things that Dr. Asantewa described my mother as. My mother was a midwife. My mother was an acupuncturist. She actually helped to start the ADS Collective here in Atlanta. She started the chapter here in Atlanta, and the ADS Collective was started actually by my uncle Kokai Patterson in Washington, D.C. And he also was trained by our uncle, Dr. Mutulu Shakur. Also, my mother was an activist with sisters. She had different women organizations. She also was a singer. She sang with Miriam Makeba. She sang with Nina Simone. And she had a singing group in New Orleans when we were younger called Cultural Voices. And they always sang about different activists and different things that were going on in the world at the time. She taught us so much about being not just heard, but being seen in a quiet way at times. Sometimes you don't have to open your mouth to make a statement. So she taught us so many things of how to be a woman in this world of machoism, in this world of sexism. She taught us how to be women in the movement, because, we look at, when people think about the movement, they think about men mostly being in this movement, being part of the army. Our mother was one of the first women to be in the military. She was, Santuel, Aisha, y'all can chime in on this one, but she held the title of general in the People's Army of the RNA of the Republic of New Africa. And then I wanted to just show this. This is a flyer, if you all can see it. Asantewa talked about it briefly. When she was 6 weeks old, my mother was taken back into incarcerated. And then a flyer was made. But the baby in the flyer is me, because they didn't have a picture of my mother and Asantewa at the time. And this is the only baby picture that we have, or that I have, of my mother and I, because of COINTELPRO, because of the FBI and the CIA, and them raiding our houses and destroying all of our baby pictures, all of our family albums, and just different things that belong to us, clothes, everything. They would come into places that we lived and just destroy our property. And that was a tactic to scare our parents, which ultimately they felt would scare us as the children. And as my sister Aisha said, to scare us into talking to them and giving them information that honestly we were trained from birth not to talk. We were trained from birth when and what to say. A lot of people don't understand that this being children of revolutionaries, you learn how and when to react. A lot of times growing up, as both of my sisters said, having people follow you, you get like they said, we were never scared. Like there was this one, I'll tell you this one story where we lived in Atlanta, in the west end of Atlanta, and this man, literally, he was obviously, you could tell who he was. He was this light-skinned man with straight hair, always wearing suits in the midsummer, and we know how hot Georgia can get. And he would follow us. He would get on the public buses when we would get on. We'd be on the bus coming from school in the middle of the day. He'd be on the bus with us. And there were times when we would go up to him and be like, we know who you are. We're not afraid of you. Like, you're following us for what? There's nothing that we're hiding. There's nothing to see here. Our parents taught us so much about being strong and being diligent in who we are. And then walking with our heads high, no matter where we go, no matter what goes on, because we know that we're not doing anything wrong. We're not wrong for walking around saying free the land by any means necessary. We're not we're not doing anything wrong for carrying our names and correcting people on how to say our names correctly. Everything that, my sister said about all of our parents, the dedication that they had, the wherewithal to go out and not only sacrifice their lives, but sacrifice our lives for the betterment of our people. That's something that, growing up, you don't necessarily realize as a child the impact that has. I'm not sure what's happening, but you don't recognize the impact that has. But as adults, we've learned to embrace it in so many different ways. We've embraced it in just our daily lives, in the way that we've raised our children, in the way that we, do our own activism, in the way that we speak out on different political issues, different social issues, different economic issues that are going on in this world today. One thing, when my sister brought up 1981, so many things went on in our lives that we don't even talk about on a daily basis. But in 1981, my mother, the house that we were living in was raided, and my mother was arrested. It was 3 tanks, helicopters, 100 army men, 4 tanks. Thank you, Aisha. 4 tanks, 100 army men, and that was local, 200 local police officers, FBI, CIA, all type of different agencies that came out, and they surrounded the house that we were residing in Birdtown, Mississippi, where one of my mother's longtime revolutionary sisters, it was her home. And it was, they arrested my mother with shackles on her feet and her hands. And then they arrested my mother's sister at the time, whose house it was. And then they arrested all of us children. The oldest child was 13 and the youngest was 4 months, who were my cousins, twin cousins at 4 months. They arrested all of us young children. They zip tied our hands and took us to jail. Like, even talking about those experiences, sometimes, we don't realize the impact it may have. Like I don't remember it verbatim the actual moment, but there's certain things that may happen, certain times things are said that you start to, feel those things that happen to you as a child. And those are just the different, some of the things that we went through being children of revolutionaries. As my sister said, people would ask, well, why you don't do this or why you don't do that? And my reply is, it's not about what you see or what you hear, just watch the work that we do. When I said earlier that I live on land, I was taught from birth to free the land. I live and reside on free land owned and operated by us. And everything I said about building that land is going to be owned and operated by us. No white man, no other nationalities own this land. No other nationalities govern that land. We are the owners. We are the owners of the school that is presently there. We are the owners of the medical institute that we are building in honor, and the name of it is going to be the Dr. Mutulu and Iafalani Medical Institute of Learning. Our school is called Goshen Hebrew Academy. We are in our 2nd year. I'm the assistant principal there. Everything we do it because of how we were raised. We do it because of the things that our parents taught us to do. We're building a tactical training field because that's part of being who we need to know how to arm ourselves. When we look at social media, we see all types of nationalities teaching their children from young how to defend their homes, defend their land. And we as people of, our ancestors were enslaved, you don't see us doing that often. You don't see us saying, you know what, we have the right to bear arms. We have the right to teach our children how to defend themselves against anyone to come into our home, our land, our school, our community, our building of worship. We have a right to do those things. So in the presence of understanding who we are, everything that we do reflects everything that our parents taught us to do. So growing up targeted, it didn't brand me to become angry, hateful against this country, because we were never taught to be that. It just taught me to be aware of my surroundings at all times. It taught me to be understanding of others in so many different ways, because just as we are targeted, so many other people are targeted. So it teaches you to be more compassionate to especially other countries that they deem unfit to sit side by side by the United Snakes of America. And it gives you a better understanding of who we are as a people. So, I guess my goal today, why I'm here, is to bring more enlightenment to each other, more compassion for one another, to be able to, say our story, but understand that we're not saying our story for pity. We're saying our story so that we can help strengthen one another, so we can be a vessel, if it's so be it, by the will of the Creator, to be able to be that spokesperson for so many. Like Aisha said, we have cousins. All of us grew up together in this movement together. Some don't want to speak. Some don't know how to speak. And then some of the ones that we do, we all sit and talk to each other. So we speak for them. We speak for our parents. We speak for our uncles and aunts who served years and years, decades in the prison system, like our Uncle Sekou Odinga, like our Uncle Matula Shakur, who's just released, like our Uncle Geronimo Pratt. So many, like Brother Sundiata Akoli, so many served. So many are in exile, like Auntie Asada Shakur, who don't get the chance to help raise their children, who don't get to touch their loved ones every day like we do. And this is what COINTELPRO did. They ripped families apart. And they thought by ripping our families apart that they would destroy us, but we only became stronger from that. We didn't give up. We weren't taught to give up, and we'll never give up. That's all I have for now.
Wow. Wow. I can't even say anything, just wow. Thank you again for sharing your experience with us. And I am going to pass it on to my generation, to the granddaughters of these great leaders. And excuse me if I pronounce your names wrong, Tahira and Izin. Yeah, please correct me.
Yeah. I'm Tahora, or go by Ama by my family. And my name is Ezinwanyi, but I also go by Ezzy.
Ezin. Okay, thank you.
So Ama and Ezzy. Yeah. Or Ezzy and Ama. So we just had a couple questions also to add on to the questions that were set already. Thank you for your already very detailed explanations and answers on how it felt to grow up targeted. Because, we may hear bits and pieces as we, live with you, Ima, and gather with and spend time with our aunties, but it's the way that you guys say it to the masses that is like in a profound way. And it's almost like, I'm like, is that them talking? But yes, it's them talking. So I'm gonna let you ask your questions first, and then I'll ask one.
Okay, thank you, Italy. Just a short introduction. I'm Tahora Ama. I am the niece of Auntie Aisha, the niece of Dr. Santiwa Sunyali, and I am the first child of Princess Madaya Israel. I am also the first granddaughter of Iyefulani Sunyali, and I am the second granddaughter of Bilal Sunyali, and I am I don't know which number I am of Baba Ahmed Obafemi. So there's that. And I'm just really glad that we are able to have this platform where our family is able to actually talk about their story and just give hindsight to you all of, you know, the struggles and the, you know, the triumphs that they've had throughout their lives. So thank you for this. And thank you, Mother and Auntie, for sharing this experience and allowing yourselves to be open to let us know, you know, what is going on, what has happened, and how we can prevail now in this time. So the question I have for you all is, what are some ways you all practice forms of healing yourselves in your family? I can start with anyone, but I will start with the oldest, which will be Auntie Aisha. So I can repeat the question if you'd like me to, but if you
No,
got it, go
I
ahead.
got it.
All right.
Got it. One of the ways, well, I mean, it's many ways. Laughter is one. And you know that, you know, because you've been around me, my sisters, and, you know, all of us, even with the brothers, like that's something that we do. And, you know, for everybody listening here too, let me just say that you heard all of us talk about our three parents. And we have never halved or stepped. So, you know, we are a family, you know, we're a giant tree. I was about to go into that song, but anyway, and that's something that we do too, you know, in our family. We sing, we joke, and we quote lines from movies all the time. Every situation, there's a line from a movie that we can fit with that. And I think that's important because the things that we've shared, nobody else has, with the exception of the cousins. So when we're all together, that's a healing time for us because we know that we're in that safe space and that the people that we're with truly know who we are, and they understand that, and there's no explanation needed. And I think for me, you know, being the oldest daughter and having to, you know, I've been, you know, the person to help to raise my siblings at a young age, which I would do again. And, you know, it helped me to grow. I did have to grow up faster than I probably would have liked to. Like I said, from the time again until I was 17. So, you know, most of my high school years were spent living with, you know, family members and, you know, family friends who stepped in, you know, when needed. And I so appreciate it. I also want to add that I don't think I would change anything about my life. I think it made me, you know, definitely made me so much stronger. And I learned a lot from it. And the lessons that I learned have allowed me to be who I am today. And although I am not perfect, I feel that I perfectly reflect, you know, what my ancestors envisioned. I do feel like I am my ancestors' wildest dream. And I want to especially give thanks and praises to, you know, my personal ancestors, Iya Falani and Baba Ahmed. And yeah, I think laughter, talking, we cry, you know, sometimes, massage, you know, exercise, you know, all of those things are therapy and ways of self-healing that for me, that work.
Thank you, Auntie Aisha. Thank you. Those are definitely some things that I do myself. So
We do
thank
laugh.
you. Right. We do laugh. We love a good laugh. Now I will go to my mother, Princess Medaya, and ask you if you have any, you know, anything you'd like to share for that as well. And for the sake of time, I don't want to cut any of you all short, but I would ask that you kind of just put it into just you know, into just a smaller little bubble, but
Okay.
all that you can.
No problem. Ditto what Aisha said. Definitely the laughing the jokes, the movie lines, like it's just automatic. If we're texting, we'll text a movie line. It's just something that, I don't know, it's just like second nature to us. It's like breathing. Then of course, for me, living out on the land, farming has been very therapeutic for me. Like doing my own garden, raising my sheep, just living out on the land, period, has brought so much more clarity to me and peace, I believe, to my inner soul. It's allowed me to be more reflective on the principles of what my sister said earlier, the New African Creed, and also the commandments that, you know, we live by out of the Old Testament, out of the Tanakh. So I utilize, I would say, the best healing for me has come from living on the land, because it's allowed my mind to be more open. The air, of course, is fresher out here. And when you put your hand to the earth and you see, and you plant seeds, like, you know, and then you see those seeds grow, it's something that, you know, you cannot, it's a feeling that just, you know, just, it's almost unexplainable, because it's like you're doing the Creator's work, of course. And then it just reminds me, as my sister said, as her shirt says, seeds of revolution. And when I plant those seeds, that's what I'm thinking about, planting food that is going to revolutionize us, that is going to revitalize our bodies, our minds, our spirits. And that's going to keep us here longer than anyone expects us to be. And also having that food so that when this government, you know, starts to do what it's doing now, trickle and charge up food, that we have our food, you know, that we have our resources. So that's healing for me, you know, to be able to provide that, to be able to even start to provide it. And also that healing teaches me that that's being a revolutionary in so many ways.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, the air is better out here. I will agree with that.
Next,
It's true, I agree.
I will ask Dr. Sunyali if you would like to share some practices that you also, you know, find ways to heal yourself and your family.
For sure. So yes, certainly I concur and second what was said by both of my sisters. I know that we're trying to keep this short, because I made a list of things because I'm all about the healing and the self-care, particularly because, you know, I don't think that our parents, you know, namely, you know, our mother, to be very specific, in a lot of ways didn't have those opportunities, or didn't take those opportunities to care for herself as much as I think, or I think we collectively think that she could have and should have. But we understand, you know, why. We understand what she was facing and what she was up against and what she had experienced. And so the first thing, you know, that I do is honor my feelings and honor what it is that I'm going through. It's difficult living, you know, as a Black woman in the world, in a capitalist system, you know, in a patriarchal system, dealing with the things that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So the first thing I do is honor that. I honor my frustrations, my anger, and I make sure that I understand where that comes from, so that I'm not taking it out on my family, not taking it out on my two, you know, precious daughters, because it's easy. And that's a part of, you know, what the system is kind of designed to do as well, divide and conquer. We have this frustration, we have this anger, we have this exhaustion. And in a lot of ways, we're not able to properly channel that. We don't know the source of it. And then we just kind of like, you know, we're cut and we're just bleeding all over everybody, right? So that's one of the ways that I do talk therapy. Also music. I would be remiss, you know, Aisha mentioned song earlier, but you know, it's a personal practice of mine. But as I said earlier, it's only a personal practice of mine because that was something that was so embedded in our home, growing up, and not just our parents playing music, but our parents performing music, right? Our father, Bilal Sunni Ali, writing songs. So earlier, both, Aisha and Afua mentioned, Madaya, they mentioned, not being afraid of the FBI and being taught that. And there's an actual song, or chant that my father wrote called Righteous Soldiers. And it says, righteous soldiers, children, do not cry, not afraid of your army on your every side. They keep holding their heads up high, just as proud as they can be. They know they must be strong, for the time is coming and it won't be long. They'll be called upon to carry on in the place of you and me. So he basically says righteous soldiers, they don't need a uniform. They can be recognized by love and unity, right? And so we had these songs, these what my father called movement tunes, that reminded us of who we are. And so we didn't need, a whole lot of healing as we became adults to kind of recover from a childhood of growing up targeted. Our parents made sure to affirm who we were all along the way. Right. So it was never, these feelings. Of course, there was contradictions. And of course, we had to, matriculate through public school and had to assert ourselves and teach our teachers and all those kinds of things. And those were, difficult at times, but we were affirmed, right, through these songs, through the music. And also for me personally, I think one of the ways that I carry on that tradition of healing and speaking and expressing and releasing through artistry is through my own artistry and creativity. So writing the play, Our Liberated Justice and A Political Prisoner on Mother's, that's one of the key ways that I heal, is continuing to tell the story and expose COINTELPRO, right? Expose, the system that we live, or the various systems, interlocking systems that we live within. And so those are some of the ways. I could go on, but I'll stop there.
Thank you, Dr. Sunni Ali. I would say, please go on. But yes, we do have one last question to ask, and I'll let my sister Ezzy go ahead and ask you all those questions.
Yeah,
that question.
This is also just our panelist questions. There'll be time, I noticed some people were throwing in the chat a couple questions, but there'll be time for the audience to ask questions after this. So this question, it's like a two-parter, and some of it came from your nephew and your son, Princess Madaya, and he said, I take full credit for this question. So he said, through growing up targeted, what practices did you all value most from the leadership of Baba Ahmed, Baba Bilal, and Iya Fulani? And the second part is, and how does that help and impact the way in which you raise your own children? I can
repeat the first part. Repeat the first part.
What practices did you all value most from the leadership of Baba Ahmed, Baba Bilal, and Iya Fulani?
One of them I would say is family meetings.
Yeah.
That would be at the top of the list. Our parents taught us to never be afraid to ask questions, even of them. And they allowed us that because, we were respectful, of course. But if we had questions or there were things, challenges, within the household, between the siblings, between it, anyone. See, that we would discuss it in a family meeting. Sometimes family meetings were called when you didn't want it to be called. It might be about you. But, family meetings nonetheless. And I feel that that's very important because a lot of times children are afraid of their parents in a way that doesn't allow them to freely speak and communicate. So then you don't know what's going on with your child in your house. So we never had that. I think that would be, I'll let my sisters, speak on something else, but that would be the utmost important one to me. And that they allowed us that time to speak whatever was on our heart, without fear of retribution. But, you know, getting it off your chest
Gotcha.
and talking through it and working through it. You know, it might not have always been pretty, but it was a time that allowed us to heal through things. And it was very, very helpful. And, you know, as an adult and in how I deal with my children, you know, and my nieces and nephews who are also my children, you know, y'all can come and talk to us about anything. And we do, we talk about things. And so, yeah, that would be the top for me.
Be- Before we go on to the next person that wants to also share, just as you're still talking, Auntie, could you answer the second part of this question, which is how has this helped impact the way that you raise your own children through these family meetings?
I answered it. I said,
Okay, that's it.
I said that it helps because
Anything else?
what happened?
Just in case you want to throw anything else in there, I just wanted to know.
Not really. I think that's good. I'll let my sisters answer
Thank you.
or
Thank you.
elaborate. Okay.
All right, Princess Madai, if you would like to, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, I don't. I think what stands out or what I take from our parents was the love and the unity that they had. Like us, Aisha mentioned earlier, they didn't teach us about having stepbrothers and stepsisters. We are all one. So when we say we have siblings, we have siblings. It's more than a handful of us, but none of us call each other stepbrother, stepsister, stepmother, stepfather. It's just Mama Falani, Mama Zenobia, Baba Bilal, Baba Ahmed, Mama Kenya, and those are our parents. Mama Mag, those are our parents. And with all those parents, what we saw that they gave us, they respected one another, they communicated with one another, they made having a blended family feel like it wasn't blended. A lot of times people will be like, how is Aisha your sister, but then Ahmed's her father, but Bilal's your father? I said, yeah, it's just what it is. That's my father, that's her father, and that's our mother. You know, people be like, well, did your mother, like they trying to figure it out. Like, what was it? And then I just, you know, try to tell them it was them working together. They worked together so that we would work together, so that there would be no, oh, that's your father, you know, your father, da, 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 or your mother, da. It was never any of that. It was always just us being one. And, you know, like I should say, it was times when none of us lived together, except us little ones lived at a certain time together because we lived with different families here and there. You know, shout out to our uncle, may he rest in peace, Uncle Shaheen Jabbar and his family, who took care of us for a few years when our parents were, you know, underground. You know, so you know, the way that they did that is what I love, you know, and what I guess grasped on in my own family. You know, it comes to the second question, when it comes to blended family, I do my best to try to teach you all, my children, that there's no step brother, there's no stepfather. We're just one family. You know, we may not all get along all the time, but if let's say as in Wanyi's siblings who live, you know, a couple of hours after they have a party, then all of us get in the car and we all go. It's not, you know, oh, those aren't my children. Those are my children because they are a part of an extension of my children that I gave birth to. And if they need something, and I'm here as a mother figure for them as well. And that's what, you know, our parents taught us to be. And I could say, and my children, they could testify this, I'm like that with probably all the children that come around me in the community, including my nieces and nephews. I'm, you know, hands down the favorite aunt. You know, I can't do nothing about that, but
that's okay,
but,
because I'm the eldest aunt. You can be the favorite because I'm the eldest.
So, you know, but that love that we have for each other's children and one another, and that blended family, that's what I take and I hold most dear to me. And that's what I take and you know, I pray that it's being passed down to you all in the most correct way as possible.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Doing good. You're doing good. Now, Dr. Asante, if you would also share your answer. Do you need me to repeat it? You got it. Okay.
I got it. I got it. I just want to say, ain't no half stepping. That's just been on my on my mind since Aisha mentioned it earlier. So it's interesting because I'm very much like listening and processing what my sisters are saying. Because like I said earlier, this is an area of my research. And as a part of my research, I have interviewed my siblings just around our upbringing. So I'm still learning and gathering data, if you will. So it's beautiful to hear that we all share, one of those kind of major takeaways or practices of our parents. And what I'll do is I'll kind of extend that out a bit. And I'm sure we all can agree that our family unit, the practices within our family unit, caring for one another, and not necessarily identifying each other as, not full or not whole or whatever, all the different terms that people come up with. I think that is extended out to I know that it has extended out to how we look at community as well. And so, both of my sisters quoted the New African Creed earlier, portions of it, but there's also a part where they said, I love my brothers and sisters as myself, right? And so in a lot of ways, growing up and not seeing Baba Ahmed as, it's my mom's ex-husband, or, that's my older sibling's father, but seeing him, oh no, that's my father, like that's a Baba, right? It has helped me to also see other parts of our community, other members of my community, as mamas and babas as well. So that extends out to not just those who, whom with we share blood, or whom those with we share blood with, right? Hope I didn't lose anybody there. But it's also, extended out to that community. So that, and also critical thinking. I know Aisha mentioned this earlier. Our parents were relentless in empowering us to question the questions, right? And so if they had questions of us, or if we were, I have vivid memories of watching the news, and my mom would always, shh, the news is on, and she's watching, but she had her commentary for almost every line that they said. Her and my father, she would have a full lecture for, okay, let me say, and it wasn't even her trying to say, okay, let me teach you, the correct history. It would just come out. It would just be a correction of whatever it was that the news anchor might be talking about. And so I find myself doing that to the point where my husband is like, okay, I can't hear the news. Because I'm like, well, no, no. And so, but what it is though, it's reflective of the fact that as I'm watching, I'm not just passively, ingesting or accepting what's being told to me or what's being told to the masses. I'm actually critically thinking and processing and re-educating and undoing and all these things in the process of not only watching the news, but everything that I do. And so that's one of the practices that I'm so grateful for, because I think that it's helped me to be strong, to navigate through life, to know who I am, regardless of all the different narratives that are out there, around who we are and who we should be, who we can be, and who we were. And so how that relates to, my own children, I certainly teach them, that we're one collective family as people of African descent. And, my daughter, my oldest is 5, and she's still, processing, like, okay, that's my mom, or that's my auntie, or that's my, and I think she's counting now. She's like, wait, okay, that's another auntie. That's another uncle, that's another cousin. But she's getting it and she's accepting it. And I think nowadays folks are calling, you know, the parenting where you allow your child to question, where you allowed your child to have a certain level of freedom, like Aisha was saying, or exercise their agency as it relates to, you know, sharing what's on their mind. Folks are calling it gentle parenting these days. But that is one of the things that I like to exercise as it relates to, you know, my 5-year-old. My youngest is 8 months. So yeah, I'm exercising it with her as well. But the 5-year-old can talk back. And so with her, you know, I allow her that space. And as my sister said earlier, we all mother her. So we all allow her, and I'm in Ezra, you mother her too. So we all allow her that space to live up to her name, which is free, to live up to that name and to question. She has many questions, and I always welcome those questions. And so that's one of the ways that I kind of carry it forward in my own parenting.
And I want to say, just briefly interject that while we're talking and listening to, you know, what my sisters are saying, I do want to share that, you know, so we're talking about growing up targeted, you know, and for those who may have joined late, just to clarify, we're talking about exposing COINTELPRO, growing up targeted, and we shared, you know, some of how we grew up and stories that affected us. I want to say that one of the things that I wanted to mention, because as adults and in life, you know, we have to navigate. So you start out growing up targeted in a certain way, and then you're out in the world and in community, and working in different, you know, different walks of life with many different people. One of the things that I want to mention is that everyone who comes around us always says how special we are, how special our family is, how our family embraces people and community, and that we're open to teaching and mentoring, and that comes from our parents, from our uncles, from our aunts, and the way that we were raised and the way we grew up. And, you know, there were times, you know, when we would be places, but knowing we were going to see our Uncle Sekou or our Uncle Matul or our Uncle Shaheen, you know, like we'd get happy because we knew that we were getting ready to get loved on by these people who helped to raise us. And I just wanted to give thanks to all of those people. You know, a lot of them aren't here anymore in the physical, but they're always with us. So, you know, the entire Shakur line, you know, like I said, Uncle Sekou, Uncle Matulu,
Uncle Chewy.
Uncle Chewy, who I spoke to the other day, Uncle Muntu Matsamela, you know, may he rest in peace, his son Jelani, you know, our brother Daruba Suni Ali, and our sister Sanovia Amira Muhammad, who are watching us from above and, you know, who are with us, our cousin Tupac, and all of those people, because all of those people make us who we are. And so the light that everybody sees within us comes from those people because of the upbringing that we had. So not only did we grow up targeted, we grew up loved. We grew up loved. And, you know, don't feel sorry for us. You know, these stories that we share to educate, but don't feel sorry for us because we are blessed. We grew up blessed. We continue to be blessed, and we are blessed to be a blessing to all of those around us in our community. So, like I said, you know, previously, it's our job to educate, but don't feel sorry for us. So we grew up targeted, but that didn't stop us from blossoming. We are who we are because of our parents, because our parents were great, you know, and they are great. And I just want to, you know, also say, you know, to our Baba Bilal, because this was his idea, you know, and this is one of the things that he always does. He teaches us in a way, he like slips it in, you know, sometimes he'll say
Yep.
little things because he wants to see, are y'all gonna run with it? What y'all gonna do? Let me just drop this
Mhm.
right here. And that's just how he does. It's his style of educating and teaching us was so unique in the way he did it. It was never anything forced or anything that felt like he was, you know, making us do something, but he was making us do something. But he made us feel like we wanted to do it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Thank you for your answers, and thank you for doing what you do, because everything you said, of course, we can attest to that and say, yes, this is true. They're not just playing with y'all. This is true. We laugh, we cry, we have family meetings. We wasn't raised on half and step. in the way that we grew up, and I have cousins who I then explain to my friends, no, that's my brother. And they're like, well, how was it your brother? Don't ask how it's my brother. I said, it's my brother, it's my brother. My mama, that's my mama Aya, that's my mama whoever, my Baba. So I just thank you all for instilling that in us through from what you guys do and from what Pop and Ia and Grandpa all taught you and then taught us as well. And it's important that we do have this webinar to explain kind of and share in which we do this. Because yes, y'all grew up targeted and we're aware of that. And I think what Auntie you brought up about how when we're together, we know that these are the people that love us. So when you bring people around us, mamas and babas and brothers and sisters, then we know that these are also people who may have grown up targeted as well, and that this is a safe place with them. We're not targeted within this group. We may be targeted as a whole, but we're not targeted within this group. And that it just grew up, for me at least, that gave me a peace of mind when I was little. Like, oh, I'm safe here. So I thank you all. And did you have to add something to that?
No, I just thank you all for all that you do and, you know, all that the Creator allows you all to do and give us and the community. Yes.
And I also, I have to shout out my Auntie Kasima and my Auntie
Yes.
Priscilla.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, a part of
The
this.
aunties.
The aunties who have also been the mamas.
So we want to go ahead and open up the floor for
Yes.
questions from the audience.
The tech will be assisting with allowing you to unmute to ask your questions, I believe. There is a Q&A tab at the bottom also. So we'll try to go through those questions as well. But I will.
Yeah, one of the questions in the chat is, what is health work you are doing for the community now? And then how do you plan to use the land for the people?
Seems like that one's directed at you, Mama.
Okay. Direct question. I got you. So health work, first and foremost, as being, let me open my text because I don't like to say anything incorrectly. So 1 second. So health work, I am part of, as I spoke of earlier, the ADS Collective. And the ADS Collective is a collective of acupuncturists who not only do acupuncture for one another, but do acupuncture throughout the communities. It's acupuncture is used for healing and teaching. A lot of times, you know, people are like, oh yeah, I want to go get acupuncture. They're not fully understanding. So when you get acupuncture through the ADS Collective, you're also getting knowledge and understanding of not just what acupuncture does for us ourselves and our bodies, but for our minds and for our community as a whole. So being a part of the ADS Collective, one thing that we're doing is we hold classes like this weekend right now. Actually, they're in a class in DC and they're watching this webinar. And it's being led by Dr. Kokai Patterson and Dr. Udi Awana, who are pioneers, you know, in this acupuncture field, and who were both students, as I said earlier, of Dr. Mutulu Shakur, along with our mother, Ia Fulani, who was a student of his. Also, I am officially part of BANA, which was and is established by Dr. Mutulu Shakur. And Dr. Mutulu and BANA is also dealing with acupuncture. He started this, I was, let's say, I don't know, like 4, probably before I was born. I was young. But basically, when Uncle Mutulu started BANA, he was going into the communities. And within the communities, he would heal drug addicts, alcoholics. He would take those who were downtrodden and not just heal them with the acupuncture, but heal them with the message. uplift their spirit. And they did that within the community. And it wasn't, they didn't do it for the money. They did it to build unity, to build camaraderie, to build understanding of who we are as a people. And that until we're able to free ourselves of the chemicals and the war that is going on against us, which is the war on drugs, the war on sex, the war on alcoholism, all those different things that they planted in our community to kill us, he went inside of the community to help to heal us and to be able to rise above that. That was one of the reasons why he was targeted. They don't want us. They don't want us to heal ourselves. They don't want us to heal one another. So part of me being a part of both of those collectives on our land, we're building a medical institute, which I stated earlier, but it's called the Dr. Mutulu and Iafalani Medical Institute of Learning and Culture. And one of the major things that we will be addressing is acupuncture. We will be teaching acupuncture. We will be teaching holistic medicine. We'll be teaching doula-ships. We'll be doing midwifery programs there. Everything that we're doing is centered around holistic medicine and having access, for our people to have access, rather, to be able to have an institute that's not governed by the United States of America, United Snakes of America, that will tell you, oh, you can't get this type of healing because you don't have this type of insurance or you don't have this type of money. Our goal is to heal one another and heal ourselves. So that's one of the ways that I am utilizing our land. As I stated, we have a school that we established 2 years ago. We're in our second year. We go from kindergarten to 12th grade. I'll put that information, or if somebody's on this call who has all those websites, they can put them in. But our school is directed towards showing and teaching our children that it's right and it's okay and it's strong and it's use your voice to be a light to the nations, because that's who we are. So in our school, we don't do this for the money either, even though we have a small tuition that's comparable compared to most private schools. We are a licensed private school in the state of Georgia, and we do virtual and in-house learning. So if you don't even live in Georgia, your child can go there, and you don't have to be a Hebrew Israelite for your child to attend our school. We have a few students who attend our school who do not go by the way of life of being a Hebrew Israelite. Also, part of our community outreach in where we live, which is Sparta, Georgia, we are establishing ourselves in the community itself. We have businesses that we've opened up in this community to help it bring back the economic development of this community. Hancock County, where we live, is 92% Black. It's the Blackest county in the state of Georgia. It used to be the richest county in the state of Georgia. Now it's presently one of the poorest counties. The education system out here is very poor. It's very low on the score. But what we have done is we are implementing ourselves. We are going into the systems, becoming councilmen, participating in the school system. We are actively, like I said, purchasing businesses in the downtown area of this community and hiring community, not just our people that, when I say our in this community, but hiring those who live in the community so that we are establishing jobs and, rebuilding the community as a whole.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a video to show actually before we jump into more questions. Sorry, that was supposed to happen before, but I'll pass it to you, Auntie, so you can share.
And then also, if you all have any questions about what Princess Medaya had shared, please feel free to reach out to her and contact her for any questions, comments, and concerns.
I just want to share before I share the video. So the video, just to provide a little bit of context, The video is of, it's actually the opening to the documentary series first episode. So Seeds of Revolution, Growing Up New African. It's the intro, and it is the voice of Fulani Suni Ali singing one of those movement tunes that I referred to earlier, Whirlwind, which was written by Baba Bilal Suni Ali. And so Afua just talked about the fact that we are at war. And I've been reading some of the questions in the chat. Folks are asking, you know, are we still at war? Is COINTELPRO still going on? You know, there's a statement that was issued by the FBI that said that the COINTELPRO operation stopped in 1971. And as you can tell from Aisha's face and shaking of her head vigorously, that could be further from the truth. And that's what the work of this particular coalition is, right? To bring that attention to the ongoing COINTELPRO operation and formations. And so anyway, I'm kind of responding to some things that are in the chat, and also my cousin Hazina. Hey Hazina, she mentioned that she would like if we could call out some of the names of the fallen revolutionaries. And I'm happy to say that this introduction that I'm getting ready to play does call out some of the names of those new African ancestors in particular. So I will go ahead and share the video now.
War is never easy. It's bound to bring on hardship. It's bound to make you weary. Reach out for me. This is what she's saying. And war will have us parting. Our path is getting distant. We might not see each other until we win. So until then, until we win, look for me in the whirlwind, trying to see my face in the whirlwind, try to grab her hand in the whirlwind, to say, do all you can to help your sister, woman, brother, man, through the world. Reach out, reach out for she. Reach out for she. For
Thank you for sharing.
I think we all can just take a moment and Take a deep breath and a moment to honor Iafulani.
Too many of us have grown up targeted. Some of us are the children of our freedom fighters targeted by the FBI's counterintelligence program. Some of us have simply grown up in communities occupied by local law enforcement agencies, militarized with surplus military weapons and equipment, trained with misplaced military tactics. On December 18th, the Exposed COINTELPRO and Beyond Coalition will host its third educational forum, Growing Up Targeted. Our panelists watched their parents incarcerated for their community organizing efforts, went to school under FBI surveillance. But their stories are not unique. We want you to tell your own stories as well. Please record a video recounting your own stories of law enforcement targeting and how it has impacted your childhood, shaped your adulthood, colored your perceptions of those who wear guns and badges, who swore an oath to serve and protect your community. When you post your story, we're asking that you use the hashtags, hashtag growing up targeted and hashtag expose COINTELPRO. Let your audience know that you have registered for our December 18th event. Urge that they do so as well. Your use of these hashtags will help us promote this important event. Help us educate members of your community. Help us mobilize a broad coalition in support of our efforts to expose COINTELPRO and to pass HR 2998.
Ripped us apart like Mr. did Celie and Nettie. And Mama told us that nothing but death can keep us from her. The FBI must be death. The CIA must be death. The US government must be death. Because in us, they killed any hint of trust for them. They killed any inkling of ours to agree that we were some Americans. Ripped us apart like Mr. did Celie and Nettie. They, like a machete, sliced open our bond. Pieces of us scattering every which way. We prayed for the day of our reunion. This is an excerpt from my play, A Political Prisoner in My Mother's Womb, which chronicles the experiences of my brothers and sisters, the circumstances of my birth, and the impact of the FBI's counterintelligence program on activists, children, and families.
In 1969, our Baba Bilal Sunni Ali became a political prisoner. He was released in February of 1972. Later on that same year, our Baba Ahmed Obafemi became a political prisoner. He was released in 1975. We salute their sacrifice and commitment to their people.
In 1981, the FBI and hundreds of law enforcement agents, along with helicopters and tanks, staged a pre-dawn raid on our family comrade's home in Birdtown, Mississippi. Our mother, Farina Sunni Ali, and her sister comrade, along with our grandfather, Lajo de Balola, and 13 children were arrested. The age ranges from 14 to 9 months. The older children were handcuffed, and the smaller children, along with my younger sister, my twin brother, and our hands were zip tied.
So after we were released, we went into political exile in Central America for about a year until we were captured by the FBI. When we were brought back to the United States, our parents were incarcerated again for about a year. Then we were reunited after that. As revolutionary children, we continue to struggle, we continue to be active, and have tremendous respect for our parents and all political prisoners and prisoners of war. Our hearts go out to all the children and families who have suffered pain and anguish at the hands of this government. and we still continue to fight for Black liberation.
I am Aisha T. Obafemi.
I am Kofi Atat Shakur Sunni Ali.
I am Madaya Yisrael, also known as Efawata Shakura Sunni Ali. I am Dr. Asantewa Fulani Sunni Ali. And we are the children of the ones who didn't die. We are the children of the people who could fly. We are the children of the ones who persevered. We're fearless, we're strong, we're ready to carry on. We're fearless, we're strong, we're ready to carry on. Free them all and free the land by any means necessary.
Okay, that video highlighted the experiences of not only the Sunni Ali family, but also wants to call others to highlight their own experiences as children that grew up targeted. So in that video, it asked us all to, create videos and show, use other platforms and outlets to show our experiences and to give these things, and tagging growing up targeted. And we want you all just to take a moment to think about all that is shared within that video, and then we will take any questions concerning that video later. We want to go back to answer a few questions that the audience has asked, and we want to ask that Auntie Aisha, Auntie Dr. Sunni Ali, and Mama Princess Madaya allow these questions to be answered. Alrighty.
I think the first question was from Ryan Napoli. Or he's just thanking you for putting this together from the Activist News Network. Next is Lumumba Bandeli. Asante for the info. The COINTELPRO link isn't working, and we're going to add that in the chat. It works now. There was an anonymous attendee. Has everything gotten better since back then? If so, how? We still going through it now as of today, if you can address that question.
It definitely hasn't gotten better. There are new tactics. They're doing it differently now. We still have to contend with the people who look like us, the people who are our friends, the people who are our neighbors, people who you may come in contact with at work, who, are being called upon to share information about anyone. So no, it hasn't gotten better. There are just new tactics and new things being done. Still the same old game. So we still need to be diligent in our efforts to protect ourselves, our families, and our communities. And part of that is working together to pinpoint possible threats. We're stronger together than we are apart. So I just feel like it's, more call to action for us to be together and to do things together. And I know that a lot of people here, as part of this webinar, do that and are working together. We need to listen to our elders because they've been here. They've been through it. I count myself among, what would be considered an elder now. And we have, knowledge of things that happen that you may not know about, but you should. So if you do find yourself in a position where you have someone who you can talk to about things, ask questions, ask them to share the history. Because if you don't know where you come from, you don't know where you're going. So it's important to ask, educate yourselves. I think a lot of times that people want to be part of something, but they don't know why. They don't know the history. They don't know the people who came before them. They don't know the people who laid their lives down on the line every day. Those who are not here, who are the reasons why we are here and able to do and speak to you guys today. So I think that's something that people need to do more of, educating themselves.
Thank you. Would you like to add, Princess Madai or Dr. Cynthia?
No, we can go to the next question. Aisha did a great job answering that.
The next question from Bomani Shakur says, what would you tell someone new in the movement when they ask you, how can you maintain New African love amongst the people?
I guess, like, for me, I would tell them how to maintain love amongst the people. Is that the question?
It's that New African love amongst the people.
Right, New African love. Well, I would say mostly is understanding that the people is what matters most. The people are what counts. Because if you don't have a people, then you don't have a nation, you don't have an army, you don't have a community, you don't have anything. Like, a leader can't lead without his people. And the biggest thing of I guess how to maintain that love is to teach one another to respect one another, to be compassionate with one another. Love is a very for some people tangible word, for some people it isn't. So I believe it's a process of teaching one another how to be with one another, and to accept in so many ways that we each love differently. So when if I see my brothers and sisters in the street, and we know that, hey, my ideologies are different than him or her, but I'm not gonna disrespect them because they don't follow the same path I follow. I still show them respect. I still show them compassion and love. And I still share the information that I have just as much as they're open and I'm willing to listen to the information that they have. We have to be willing to listen, to understand one another's plight. Because as we all said earlier, we haven't all walked the same path and everybody's struggle is different. But a lot of times what happens is someone will feel like their struggle is more important than the other. We have to understand that we cannot do that. We cannot say, oh, well, because my father was so-and-so, then, and your father didn't do this, then, it's more important that I have my way with this. No, it's more important that we all collectively come together and understand where each other's hurt is, how to heal one another. And that's how we'll maintain and also continue to collect and be loving as a community, as you say, New African love, and amongst the people. And then also understanding that I think the biggest challenge is accepting that some of us who share the same skin tone aren't ready to do this, aren't ready for war, aren't built for it. And then each one of us have a job, and we cannot put the next one down because they don't want to go and be on the front line. They rather stay in the office and close the envelopes and stuff send out the postcards or run the cash apps or whatever it is. Everybody has to be treated with respect according to the job that they're able to do. That's my answer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One of the next questions from Cousin Helena, was, can we say the names of our revolutionaries that have gone to glory? I know we may have said some of them already.
We said that, we listed quite a few, but.
Yeah, I think us in that video, they were listed, so we can.
Okay. A question from Richard Jackson says, how can I learn acupuncture in upstate New York for our people?
I believe Uncle Kokai in some of the ADS collective is on the call. So if one of you can please put in the website for ADS collective and then they will be able to reach out to you directly on when we can host a lesson or a class in your area, because right now I'm not sure we have one going on in upstate New York, but once they sent that and put that information in the chat, please reach out to them and we will get started on setting up a time and a date and a place to be able to host a class so you can learn and you can gather others like yourself who are willing to learn.
Or you could possibly travel to another class that
in the city of New York.
Question from Sama'at says, my only question is, are you willing to assist in duplicating these new African institutions throughout our national territory? Of course, within correct and righteous circumstances.
Absolutely.
Question from Devin Branch. I think this is directed to you, Auntie Tewa. Where can your documentary project be found? Also, have the song you sung about revolutionary children ever been recorded?
Yeah, so the documentary is not yet available to the public. I will be doing select screenings throughout 2023. And so if you would like to, if you'd like to be a part or in the audience at one of those, head to seedsofrevolution.com, where you can sign up for the mailing list, and I'll make sure to share out that information. You could also follow the Instagram page at Seeds of Revolution, and information will be posted there around screenings that are happening in the new year. In terms of the recording of the song, so yes, we have been in the process of recording a lot of the movement songs or the freedom songs that our parents either wrote or sang themselves. So yes.
Thank you. A lot of these are comments saying, a lot of praise for everyone on you panelists especially. But I found a couple more questions. One is, do you all have any curriculum that you can share to be used in community space?
We shared out our website and I believe the phone number. So if you call that number or even email us at admin.gha@templekefarim.org, and I believe that's going to be placed in the chat as well. If you email there, we can talk about how we can do that and how we can move forward with that curriculum question.
You. Another question says, what ways can Black/New African community directly help the children and family members of captured freedom fighters.
I was just going to say there's various ways. There are a lot of people doing the work of trying to help the families of those political prisoners and prisoners of war. Black August, I can't think of websites right now. But if you go to my sister's page, like she said, Seeds of Revolution, and that's Seeds with a Z, you can get more information on there.
You can also, oh, go ahead, Aisha. I mean, that's Santua.
I'll just add the Malcolm X grassroots movement. So MXGM, I believe .com. If it's not .com, then it may be .org. There may be some MXGM folks
Yeah,
on.
Lumumba Bandela, if you could put that in the chat.
Yeah. And then
also the Rosenberg Fund for Children, rfc.org. And then, yeah, go ahead, Akua.
Oh, and then you have the FTP movement. I believe some of their people are online, some of their members, founders are online, if they can put that in there. It's quite a few, and there's other New African schools that are also, I know personally in the state of Georgia, Quilombo, PSAF, and then we have Heritage School of Excellence. We have quite a few here in Georgia that you can also reach out for that are doing New African schooling as well. And of course, you know, I know there's some, I don't know all the names of in New York and the different states and California, but I know we are working on and have built different networking systems so that we work together and we're able to give out information and do activities together. So if you look up some of those, and if anybody on this call is a part of any of those schools or organizations, please place your information in the chat. And then don't forget to also, you know, while we're placing information, don't forget to go to drmatulishakur.org, I believe, if I'm correct, to donate to help with everything and the things that he is needed to be comfortable and strong and push forward, as you know, as he was just released 2 days ago. And as a community, this is our time, as he stated, to shine, to do what we know we need to do. And this is our time to show him the support that he is needed. And along with all the other political prisoners that have been released over the last 10 years, they all need our help. They all still need our support. Their families still need our love. And, you know, it is our duty as the people to be there for each and every one of them. Yes, the Jericho movement.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we'll ask one last question, unless from the audience, unless we have more time. The last question we want to ask is, who are some of the unsung New African women that are not spoken about, that you would like to share, that you know, that have been in you all's upbringing during these various COINTELPRO attacks that were previously mentioned?
I guess, you know, quite a few of them. Jamal Joseph.
Said women. She said women.
Oh, women? I thought they said women and men. Sorry.
No. So Dr. Kasima P. Boston.
Yes.
Dr. Boston Jones. Unsung. Nubia Lumumba.
Dr. Bahati.
Yes. Njeri Agani.
Iya Kaina Gafor.
Mama Tamu Kanyama.
And Mama Tamu Kanyama actually has
a
her
book.
book out that she published, I think 2 years ago now. It was during the pandemic. Thought I had it here on my table, but I don't.
And then I would say you have Mama Aminato Moja, who started Quilombo. You have Mama Haiba Sonika, who's been a prominent Black doctor, OBGYN, who delivered many of us new African children. You have Mama Saran, who is one of the well-known midwives in Georgia, who's delivered many of us as well, and our children, and even some of us have grandchildren that she's delivered. These are definitely unsung heroes who, in our community, we uphold them as our mamas and our aunties and our sheroes.
Yeah, and a few others who helped us, because I know that was part of the question of, when we were growing up. Our Auntie Nakaway, Auntie Dr. Uriwana, our Aunt Amina, Aunt Desi, Aunt Laverne, Aunt Shirley, all of these
Auntie
women.
Ronnie, Auntie Nkrumah. Quite a few.
And more that we're not thinking of right now, but a lot.
Especially in New Orleans, we have a lot. I can't, Mama Tasia.
Yep, and Mama Makeda.
Mama Makeda.
But yeah, going back to what we said earlier, just in terms of how they have been, in life, some of those women that we named have passed on. And certainly all of them are elders now. And so one of the things that we talked about earlier was the fact that we have, multiple mamas and babas. And so I know that we took a moment earlier for Iafalani, but I want to take a moment and thank you for asking that question, because it is important that we honor those new African women that came before us, that modeled for us what it can look like to be a new African woman, what it can look like to have consciousness, to be an educator, to be a wife, to be a mother, to be all of these different things simultaneously, and to still, have a straight back, and have a sound mind and body and spirit. And so all of those names that we call, thank you, for stepping in, in our mother's stead, either when she was in exile or in prison. And now that she's passed on into the realm of the ancestors, so many of you have stepped in. And so thank you, for that question, so that we, could take this important moment to honor them and call those names.
And let's honor the New African Women's Organization that, a lot of those women were part of, including our mother and our Aunt Kasima and Aunt Kaina and so many other women. And, one of the things that they did was to uplift the women of the movement and to make sure that they were known and that their names were not forgotten.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So before we move on to our next segment, we wanna just salute our fallen angels. We wanna salute the children who were targeted growing up. We also wanna salute all of our freedom fighters who are with us and who have passed on. And we also wanna salute everyone in here that has also took a step in fighting this government with their communities that we know and do not know. So we salute each and every one of you, your loved ones, and all those that we do not know. Next, we would like to call on Hugh, and he will make a few announcements.
Thank you. It's been a very inspiring event so far and an honor to be a part of this. I want to share a screen, and there were a couple of questions in the chat. asking about how people could get involved in the political work of supporting the legislation that we are advocating to uh, to compel the federal government, particularly federal and state and local law enforcement, to um, uh, disclose what it is that they know about the crimes of COINTELPRO. We have purchased a domain. We are having conversations about creating a website for the coalition. The coalition is called the Expose COINTELPRO and Beyond Coalition to pass HR 2998. And I, with a nod to Sister Shafia, who was very clear that this coalition is not just about exposing the crimes of the past, but acknowledging that those crimes, in spite of the best intentions perhaps of the Church Commission and the Church Committee report, that these crimes are ongoing and continuing. And as has already been pointed out by some of our panelists, that these systems of oppression are they're wily. They adapt and change from generation to generation, decade to decade, year to year, and we have to stay on top of what is enduring about these systems of oppression if we are going to not make the mistake of pretending like the shoulders that we stand on solve these problems. So we have this domain, expose COINTELPRO and beyond .org, and it will redirect to this page where Justice for All Coalition, or I'm sorry, Sister, I might be, I'm sorry, Sister, I might be getting the name of your organization not quite right, but at justiceforall.org, we are hosting this application that's encouraging people to take action to pass HR 2998, the COINTELPRO Full Disclosure Act. This was introduced by Representative Bobby Rush, who represents a piece of Chicago, Illinois in the US Congress. Unfortunately, he waited until the final term. He served 10 or 20 terms in 10 or 15 terms in the US Congress. He's been there for 20 or 30 years. And in all that time, in spite of many people who, approached him as a member of the Panther Party and asked him to step forward and help us get this work done, he waited until his last year in Congress, or last term, 2-year term in Congress, before he finally introduced HR 2998. Last I looked, we had about 40 maybe co-sponsors, not nearly the 200 and 230, 228 votes that it takes to pass something out of the House. We still don't have a Senate co-sponsor. The election is over in less than a month. He will have retired from the US Congress, and we will be left without a sponsor. Nonetheless, we are encouraging people to continue to interact with this and to educate our communities and to advocate among our elected representatives in support of 2998. There's work going on about revisions to the act with the intention of making it stronger. We are looking for co-sponsors for the next legislative cycle. And we need the participation of everyone on this call to help us, build relationships with members of Congress. Congress consists of 435, is that right? Yes, 435, so 218 is a majority. 435 voting members of Congress who get a say in whether or not something gets sent from the House over to the Senate, where we have to find a majority and a what's the word? It takes 60 votes to close debate. We have to get a filibuster-proof majority of the Senate, which is 60 votes over there, in order to put a bill on the president's desk. This tool encourages phone calls, but also that people write letters. And by the way, if you give us your zip code, that can be matched to your member of Congress and for your particular state where you can select it here. We have a draft letter that basically outlines what what it is we're asking you to say, but of course you're welcome to rewrite this and put it in your own voice and to add your own thoughts and to personalize this. And clicking this button it will do two things. One, it will send an email to the congressional office for your representative. Two, it will add you to our own database so that we can continue to communicate with you going forward about ways that you can engage with this campaign to support HR 2998 or whatever this bill may be known as in subsequent legislative cycles. If you don't want to write and would prefer to pick up the phone, this tab allows you to, again, enter your zip code, and that will help us figure out who your representative is. And so when you enter, your name and your email address and your phone number and your zip code, we'll look up who your representative is. And when you hit the make the call button, you'll get a phone number that will you can dial to call your representative's office on Capitol Hill and ask for a conversation with their legislative director, ask for a conversation with their chief of staff, ask for a conversation with some staff member if those two people are not available. This application is embedded on this website, but it's also embedded on the websites of our organizational partners. The Expose COINTELPRO and Beyond Coalition to pass HR 2998 is governed by a little fuzzy on what we call it, a steering committee or a coordinating committee or some kind of governing committee that consists of representatives of endorsing organizations. So beyond communicating with your own elected representatives, we're asking you to communicate with, your congregation, with your labor union, with your community association, with, whatever organizational uh, uh, relationships you have, and bring to us organizational endorsements for this effort. And for those who want to take a step up, perhaps the appointment of people to serve on our governing committee that sets the priorities and the strategies of this coalition, that is responsible for organizing events like this very inspiring conversation that we've just been privy to, and has an intention to continue to do political education. This is our third event. We have plans to continue to do these in the coming year, and the participation of yourself and your organization can help give direction to, what that political organizing work looks like going forward. As this graph indicates, so far only 46 people have participated in this action. we set a modest goal of, let's get 100 people to pick up the phone and make these phone calls. And we're not quite halfway there yet. But it's going to take a lot more than 100 phone calls to move the needle. What gets legislation passed is our building working relationships with our elected representatives. And we all know that, the corrupting forces of moneyed interest and the campaign finance system makes that pert near impossible. And at some level, the people who represent us in Congress or misrepresent us, as the case may be, and their staff have to interact with their communities. And we can be assertive and insistent without being disrespectful, and we can demonstrate organizational strength, and we can build relationships with the people who are supposed to be representing our interests. And by doing so, we leverage our ability to affect what's going on under the dome up on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. And so this is one tool that gets you in the door. It has a positive effect on our ability to move legislation. And at least as importantly, it puts you on our list so that we can continue to communicate with you about the work that our coalition will continue to do in the coming legislative term and probably for years to come as we work to expose these crimes and to work for the fulfillment of the promise of the Church Commission, which brought about minimal reforms and left so much work for us to do. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I suspect that this is somewhat self-explanatory, and I turn the baton over to whoever comes next on our agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We will now, the mic now goes to Sister Shafia. And
As we
she'll
begin to close out this webinar. Sister Shafia.
All right. Good afternoon, y'all. How you doing? We are just getting ready to go on to video, and can one of our techs start the video for me, please? It's not responding on my end. Okay, so we'll go ahead without the video. First of all, we want to again thank all of our audience for all of the participation, the viewership. It takes a lot to for the coalition to function, and we want to thank all of our members. The Imam Jamil Action Network was one of the founding members of the Exposed COINTELPRO and Beyond Coalition. We also want to thank Justice for All, CARE Philly, the DC National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, the AFSC Prison Office, the organization Dissent and Defend. We also want to tell everyone that this program today has been recorded, and we want to thank Brother Kalanji because we're going to work on this recording running on Black Power Media. So you will be able to check out all of the voices of our powerful revolutionary sisters who stepped forward and educated us today. We also want to let you know about the next program that Imam Jamil Action Network is working to put together. It will be during Kwanzaa, and it's called the Freedom Fighters Film Festival, Kwanzaa 2022, and it's going to run across the South. It's uplifting the struggles for environmental justice, police control, housing justice, political prisoners, hurricane relief, and more. And we got brothers and sisters across the South who are going to be taking part in this program. But the real foundational focus will be bringing forward our Black liberation and human rights influencers and strategists of Ella Baker, Imam Jamil El Amin, formerly known as H. Rap Brown, Sister Fannie Lou Hamer, and El Haj Malik El Shabazz Malik El Shabazz Malcolm X. The program will run from December 26th. It starts out in Birmingham, Alabama at 12:30 Central Time. And then on December 27th, self-determination is going to run over to Atlanta, Georgia. On the 28th, it's going to be in Spartanburg, South Carolina with the Ubuntu Institute. On the 29th, it's going to be in Greenville, North Carolina with the organizations Mapinduzi and Muslims for Social Justice. The next day on December 30th, we'll be down in Acadia, Florida with Asha ALC and Jamatul Asa. On Kumba Creativity, that's December 31st, we'll be in New Orleans and with Bar None by Design. And on the last day, Faith, on January 1st, it will be completely online, and all of us will be getting together and we'll be doing a wrap up and cultural presentations. It will combine video clips, interviews, speeches from Malcolm X, from the local activists who are fighting local struggles. It will include interviews with Imam Jamil, Fannie Lou Hamer, Malcolm X, and Ella Baker. So we really want you to check out. We are sending out notices now, and be on the lookout for joining us and putting the real oomph back in the Kwanzaa, continuing this spirit, this revolutionary liberation message, and putting that back in Kwanzaa, putting the principles of Kwanzaa is part of our struggle, really putting forward what they're about. COINTELPRO is about smashing the movement, but there was someone who said repression breeds resistance, and we continue to resist. We continue to uphold Imam Jamil's saying about in peace strong, in battle strongest. And so we want to thank everyone who attended today, who lent their spirits to the program this afternoon. We thank all of the organizations who attended. We also invite you to invite us to speak at your organization and your organization's programs to get the word out that we want to expose COINTELPRO and what it's done against our movement and all of the movements who have resisted against oppression, both inside the United States as well as across the world. And so we thank you. We ask for peace and blessings from our Creator. We ask in the name of our Creator that we wish you peace, blessings, health, shifa, and forward with our movement. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Shafia. Okay, so we are going to begin to close out. We're actually going to go ahead and close out. Before we do that, we just want to let you all know that we will connect with for joining us today. And we want to thank the panelists, Dr. Sunyan Lee, Princess Medaya, and Aisha Lufemi for joining us here and connecting with everyone that's here. We also want to thank all of our people that hosted this event and put it all together. We want to thank our co-moderators. We want to thank Tech. We want to thank everyone, okay? Everyone. Thank you for all that you did to help us in this, in putting together this webinar. You are greatly appreciated. And we hope that you all can reach out to everyone about your comments and concerns and that you were able to get all the information that you needed. Thank you again for everything.
Thank you, Auntie and Mama. Any closing remarks you guys have, and goodbyes. You can now.
We declare our rank on this earth to be a man, to be a human being, to be respected as a human being, to be given the rights of a human being in this society, on this earth, in this day, which we intend to bring into existence by any means